All right, yesterday we looked at y-intercepts, so I want to review that really quick. From an equation, it's going to be that plus or that minus at the end. In a graph, it's where it crosses the y-axis. When in a table, when x is 0, it's whatever's across from my y. And in a written description, it's going to be that one-time thing. And then we looked at some examples. So today we're going to go to page 27, and we're going to look at doing slope this time. So we're on page 27, and I'm going to title this page Slope. Okay? So we're going to look at equation and graphs today. We'll look at tables tomorrow. But if we have an equation, and we have two types of equations we've looked at. We have y equals mx plus b, and we've looked at y equals kx. Those are the two kinds, proportional and non-proportional. Those are two that we've looked at. So our slope in our equation is going to be this m. So I'm going to draw a line and an arrow to it, and I'm going to write slope. For my y equals kx, my k is going to be my slope. Sorry, my phone is going off. I don't know if y'all can hear the buzzing. All right, so that's my slope. Just to reinforce, this b was my y-intercept, what we talked about yesterday. So some examples. Y equals 4x plus 2. My slope equals 4. And my y-intercept equals 2. My 4 here is my slope because it's in the m spot. And that plus 2 is my y-intercept like we talked about yesterday. Let's look at another example. Y equals negative 5x minus 3. My slope is, bring the sign with it, is a negative 5. And my y-intercept, bring the sign with it, is negative 3. All right, let's look at two more examples. Y equals 1/2 x minus 7. My slope is 1/2 because it's in that m spot. And my y-intercept is negative 7 because it's in the b spot. Bring my sign with it. And then we have, let's do 2/3 x. Now we looked at one of these yesterday. We talked about it's in the form y equals kx. So my slope is 2/3. My y-intercept, remember, is going to have that plus 0 after it. So my y-intercept is 0. Now these all relate to each other. Graphs, tables, and equations all are linked together. And what we're eventually going to work to this week is we're going to work to taking this equation and graphing it and making a table from it. And then we're going to take a table and we're going to make a graph and an equation from it. And then we're going to take a graph and we're going to make a table and an equation from it. All three of those are going to be linked, and then we're going to actually do an assignment where we match those three things up. So that's our equation for slope. Of course, in class, kids are going to get some graphs that I went ahead and sent if you wanted to do them. And it's kind of hard to do the graphs at home, I get it. All right, so when we're looking at graphs, we're not going to look at, we're when we're looking at graphs, we're going to use a couple of formulas here, a couple of things. The first one is to find our slope, we are going to use rise over run. Rise over run. And we are going to say that on repeat. Rise over run. Rise over run. It's one of those things you just have to have memorized. It's not given to you on a mathematics chart. It's just one of those things you got to know. And you got to know it for algebra next year. You got to know it for algebra 2 your junior year. So it's just one of those concepts that pops up a lot. And so what we're going to be doing is slope is actually how steep a line is. Okay, it's how steep a line is. So we have different kind of slopes. Okay, we have a positive slope. And this is positive because if I start on the left and drag my pencil over as if I was reading it as if it was a book, it's going up, which is positive. We have the opposite of that, which is a negative slope. Negative slope. And then we have two special kind of slopes. We have this one, which is actually called an undefined slope. And we can remember that because we can actually change that into a U for undefined. And then we have a horizontal line. I didn't leave myself much room. And that is a zero slope. It has a slope of 0. And I can remember that one because I can make it into a Z. So slope is how steep a line is. It's actually a number that we calculate that tells us how steep that line's going to be. The bigger that number is, the steeper it's going to be. Versus the smaller it's going to be, the less steep it's going to be. And so my in-class kids are going to get these graphs, but of course we're going to draw them. So I am going to draw, just like I did yesterday. I know it's a pain in the butt. If you have graph paper, you can cut the graph paper. But I'm going to pause it while I draw my graph, because I don't think you want to sit there and watch a video of me graphing. And I want you to draw your graph and push pause, and when you're done, push play. Okay, this is my first grid, and I'm going to put a dot at the center. And then I'm going to go from there, and I'm going to put a dot in each corner going up. And I know this is not going to be pretty because my graph is not pretty at all. I really didn't do a good job at drawing this graph. But there's my line. I'm sorry, guys. I really don't know how else to do this but to have you draw it. We are getting to where we're going to be drawing graphs, and so it's going to be really important that you send pictures of your work to me, or I'll try to find a different way for you to submit them, but this is all I got right now, guys. All right, so we're going to start at any 2 points. So any 2 points we want, and we're going to look at how much did it rise over how much did it run. So even if I want to start at this point, to go from this point to this point, let me zoom in on that with my horrible nails. I know, some of you really could care less about my nails. I know. Here are my 2 points. And to go from this point to this point, I had to rise 1. I rose to 1 line to get to the line that this one's on. And I'm running 1. Okay. Rising 1 and running 1. So I'm going to come back to page 27 real quick. I don't want to make a note. For our rise, oh, you can't see that. Up is positive. Down is negative. for our run to the right is positive, and to the left is negative. Sorry, I should have had us write that when we were on that page. Sorry, my mic fell. Okay, so when I come back to that, I rose 1, so that's a positive. It went up, so it's a positive 1, and it ran 1, it's positive. I also know that's going to be positive overall because this graph is going up. Oh, I'm doing a horrible job at having the screen on my videos. I'm sorry. This is going up. So my slope here equals 1, because 1 over 1 is just 1. All right, I'm going to draw another grid right here. We will have 4 grids in all. So go ahead, I'm going to pause the video. I want you to pause it as well. Draw your grid. Push play when you're done. All right, so there's my second grid. A little bit prettier than the last one, maybe. Again, if you have grid paper, I do recommend that. But if not, then this is what we'll do. If you also, if you want to come pick up copies of this, or have your parents come pick up copies of these, just let me know and I'll send them to the front office. You just gotta send me email or something. Let me know though, okay? All right. So we're gonna sorry. Start at 0 and we're gonna go up to the 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll put a dot. Okay, this is so tricky. It's so tricky to show y'all. And then I'm going to go over to 4. So I'm going to come back to my center. I'm going to go over 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to go up 1. I'm going to put a dot there. And I'm going to connect those 2 dots to make my graph. All right, so that's graph number 2. So let's look. How much is it rising? And how much is running? Now, every year I have a student who says, whoa, that graph is going down. And that's great if you automatically saw and acknowledged that that graph was going down. So it tells me it's going to be negative. That'll be, sorry, I keep hitting the mic, so I'm sorry if you keep hearing noises. So I'm going to go from this point to this point. It went down 1, still not on the line, 2, 3. I'm finally on the line. So I went down, and a down is -3. And then how many times do I have to go over? How much am I going to have to run? 1, 2, 3, 4. And I went to the right, which is positive. So my slope is -3/4. All right. I'm going to draw another grid. I'm going to pause it while I draw this grid. Give you time to draw yours also. I would encourage you to use a ruler or something to make it straight. I'm using, as you saw, an index card. But I'm going to go ahead and pause it. I want you to pause it also. And push play when you're ready. Alright, that's my beautiful third graph. It's kind of hard for me to see my y and x axis, so I'm going to actually highlight it in orange just to kind of make it stand out for me. You may do the same. I don't care. This is your notes. Just be sure they kind of match. Alright, so I'm going to start with, on my x-axis right here at the origin, I'm going to go over 3. 1, 2, 3. And I'll put a dot. Okay, and then I'm going to come back to my origin. I'm going to go to the left 3. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to put a dot there. And I'm going to connect those 2 dots. To make my line. Alright, so again, I'm going to look at my rise and run. So rise, So I'm going to start at one of the points, and I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how long it takes me to get on the same line. So I had a rise of 4, and it was up, so it's positive. My run's going to be to the right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now that fraction can be simplified, so my slope's going to be 2/3. Slopes are traditionally done as fractions because of that rise and run, but they can be decimals. We just prefer them as fractions. All right. We're going to draw one more grid. I know. If you've been doing this with me, then you are definitely tired of drawing grids. And again, I don't know how many times I can apologize and just say, I don't know how else to do this, but to have you draw them. Unless you have graph paper, which if you have graph paper, that's even better. You're not drawing all of these. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this video so I can finish drawing my graph that you saw I'm already drawing. And you pause also and push play when you're done drawing. Alright, there is my final grid. So we're going to put a dot. We're going to go to origin. We're going to go up 2 and put a dot. And then I'm going to go back to my origin. I'm going to go over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to put a dot there. And I'm going to connect those dots. Alright, so let's look at our rise and run. I can see that this is going down. So it's going to be a negative slope. Negative slope. So I went down 1, 2. So my rise is a negative 2. And my run is a 1, 2, 3, 4. Which can be simplified to negative 1/2. Now, it doesn't matter what point I start at. If I wanted to start this way and go up 2, which would be a positive 2, and left 4, which that's fine, it would have just been 2 over negative 4, which is perfectly okay as long as there's only one negative. So my slope here is a negative 1/2. So to recap, equation, my m and my k's are my slopes. My b is my y-intercept. 4x plus 2, so this is my slope, the 4. We're going to be putting that into a fraction form when we graph it, 4 over 1, so that we can rise 4 and run 1. When we do the negative 5, we're going to go down 5 and over 1, but we'll practice graphing that. We'll be working on that later. Then we have graphs, which we're going to do rise over run. Our rise, when it goes up, is positive. Going down is negative. Run to the right is positive. Run to the left is negative. Positive slope, negative slope, undefined slope, and a 0 slope. Tomorrow we're going to look at tables and spend a lot of time on tables because tables are the hardest of the 3 in my opinion. So we'll spend the whole day on tables. I'm going to ask you now if you can get some graph paper. You're going to need graph paper. If you cannot afford graph paper, can't find graph paper, let me know and I'll put some in the front office for you to pick up. But you need graph paper. We can't keep drawing graphs on all of these. And we're getting very heavily into graphs. So please purchase some or get some graph paper. If you have access to a printer, you can print graph paper. It's really easy. Just Google search printable graph paper. All right, if you have any questions, as always, send me an email. And good luck. Have a good day.